Somebody's name and how do you vote, or you could, the idea is that you have to publicly announce in some way how the vote is occurring. So an easy way is if you did roll call. Yes. Sometimes that takes a lot of time because a lot of items that you have are going to be unanimous. So what you can also do is, if that's the situation, you've taken roll at the beginning, so you know who's there. And if you say all those in favor and they raise their hand, and as your vice president or acting president tonight was doing, let the record show that everybody except. So you could figure out from what it is. A good way to think of it is, imagine if you were listening in, if you were broadcasting your meetings, or if somebody who was blind was attending the meeting. That way they would be able to know, oh, okay, this is how that person voted. It's really just designed to make sure that you're able to ascertain how each member voted, or if they didn't vote, or if they abstained.
Is that a Brown Act?
It's a Brown Act amendment, yes. Yeah, so that happened January.
And just as a follow-up, so as far as the early notification system for use to advise people that are in Los Angeles of meetings, is there a requirement, done policy law that requires that the board or any
Well, it depends on what posting protocol you follow. Okay, there's two different routes that you can follow with respect to posting your meetings right now under the commission policy. One of them is you use your 5 to 7 posting locations that you've had a certification, and you go out and you physically post those documents. The other item is you use one physical posting and one website posting. Okay? If you are following that mechanism, there is a component to that that requires that you send the agenda to done within a certain period of time. Okay? But it's not necessarily going to guarantee that that agenda also go out through ENS at a certain period of time. Did I make that clear? Because there's going to be a delay. Like if you do a 72-hour meeting, you can send your notice to done 72 hours. But done may not get it to ENS. Let's say you sent it Friday at 6, it may not go to ENS till Monday morning. So the requirement for ENS distributing it is not going to be the same. So you just have to make sure that you're getting the agenda to done in a timely way. If you're choosing to follow I call it the 1+1 posting, one physical, one website. So if you follow the 1+1,
all 5, then you don't even need to send it.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Okay.
Well, there is. Before let me follow up on that for you because I have to double check and make sure yourself. No, yeah, because I do know that there was a policy at one point in time that I still think I'd have to look at it. There was an issue, but I think that this new policy is kind of in effect. So I'll double check that and get back to you.
Ross, could you?
Yeah.
Will
the Brown Act ever have a softening for volunteer organizations like neighborhood councils?
Terry.
And opt out, so to speak, or some organic change to the law that speaks to organizations like ours that are unpaid and held to a standard that frankly, I don't see at the higher levels of government. I mean, in many cases I've seen like, they don't do half the stuff that's in there, yet we get told to do
I
it.
do. You're asking me a non-legal question in a sense. I mean, you're asking me.
I'm asking you for
care
the
what my
future.
personal advice, what my personal thought is. I'm happy that I don't think you care about that. But if you're asking for legal advice on it, the way to change the Brown Act obviously is through legislation at the state level. This issue has come up previously. There have been attempts to either discussions of about possibly exempting or making the Brown Act not applicable to neighborhood councils here. But these types of ideas have not gained a lot of traction at the state level, and my my non-legal advice, my personal assessment of it, it seems to be that there's this strong, like the newspaper groups, so there's a very strong lobbying effort by them that obviously they like that, and there's a strong core of government committed to it. So they don't want to release bodies from this transparency, because remember the underlying idea of it is you want the public to kind of see what you're doing, and that's a hard thing to argue with. I mean, everyone agrees, like, yes, we want to be transparent. So that's the place you're stuck in.
We had a number of conversations back and forth on the night agenda this morning. Great post. And I went on LA Cities and looked at their agenda. And, this is staff writing it. I'm pretty sure council people aren't writing. I didn't understand a lot that was on that agenda, so as Ross said, it seems like we're being held to a higher standard than the people who actually get paid to do this are doing. And I want to know where that comes in, because all of a sudden, all of this legislation is coming down for neighborhood councils to do more, and yet we're only advisory. But they're holding our feet to the fire, whereas people who are actually getting paid to actually have a huge staff, they're not. I'm not seeing the same quid pro quo.
Well, I'm not trying to hold your feet to any fire. I'm just giving you some advice and telling you that we're here to help you.
Yeah, but when you tell that your city attorney is looking at us, that's holding our feet to the fire. District attorney, whatever it is. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the city attorney.
Questions from our guests, the audience, the public?
Yeah, whatever the attorney is. Yeah, that guy.
Hey, Mr. Kuzman.
Can I come up?
Can I ask this question first before we get to the roll?
Well, let me get you next, Ernie.
That wasn't nice.
So I'm going to treat this as if it's my only 2 minutes. These are questions for Mr. Martinez, really. Question number 1 is, please explain how neighborhood councils are exempt from the Brown Act requirement to post agendas on their website. I quote the number here, referring to the exact language included in the Brown Act exemption clause. Does the city, okay, that's a question there. Does the city attorney's office have any case history to support the interpretation of the website posting requirement and/or exemption thereof?
Right.
Is the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment also exempt from the Brown Act web posting requirements? Question number 2 is, please give an explanation of the conflict of interest for neighborhood councils regarding real estate planning and land use changes. I gave you a little quote from your conflict of interest for neighborhood councils that discusses that point. Third question, what is considered a reasonable effort to notify stakeholders of the cancellation of a board or committee meeting? And 4, what would constitute an affiliation with a community stakeholder group? And does a board majority of a local organization rule also apply at the standing committee level?
Good questions, and Darren, however you would like to address that.
Yeah, if there are any questions that the board would like me to address that were raised, I'm happy to do that. I will make a comment just in general. If members of the public have a concern about the board, I want to emphasize, obviously our office is really concerned about appropriate actions of the board. We take it serious. We provide everybody with the appropriate legal advice. But since we are the attorney for the neighborhood council, in some ways, there are some restrictions on what we communicate. We certainly aren't able to disclose information that could impact advice that we might provide to the client. Although certainly there's some general advice that we'd like to give. I don't think that it's necessary, the purpose of tonight's meeting is that I'm here to address issues of the board that the board has. So I'm not necessarily going to go into a path of trying to respond to these questions at this point. If you want, you can send them to me in writing, and I will try to address.
I will await your response. You have it there.
All right. Okay, Ernie had his hand
Yeah,
up a
just
minute ago. Ernie,
a
then
kind
Carl,
of
then
general
Bonnie.
question. In the federal codes, there's a statute that you can make a notice of disagreement with a particular agency to respond to. Is there anything like that within the city government, the city charter?
Well, I'm not quite sure I know what you mean, so I don't know that I would be able to answer.
So on
answer
any
your
policy that they have, or any ruling that they may have, you can file a notice of disagreement. Kind of like in contract law, but it can be extended to other.
Well, you
other
can
situations.
always pursue whatever available remedies you believe are appropriate. I mean, I can't give you, I don't know what you're trying to ask or get at, so I
Is
can't
there a
answer your
code or
question.
a statute that relates directly to that?
But
Like a
there's-
notice, if I didn't agree with a commissioner's ruling, how do I formalize that?
Well, Darren, if I can, our topic tonight is neighborhood councils, and Darren's actually an attorney in the neighborhood council division. I think you're asking something a little broader at the commission level. And, you know, Darren,
I would recommend you speak with the planning commission or whoever you have concerns. Anytime any member of the public, I mean, whatever agency or organization you're working with, if you have questions, ask that agency or organization. They're usually the best one to start pointing you in the right direction anyway.
Okay, thank you. Carl,
Oh,
next.
all right.
Carl, did you have a question, Carl? Oh, okay, I saw your hand earlier. Bonnie?
I was just going to comment that I think it's inappropriate for people to ask the city attorney to give them a discourse and a legal opinion on what they think about what we might be doing wrong, because that would be technically them giving advice, telling people what their own client is doing wrong. And I think that that's a breach of ethics, and that would be improper. It'd be like somebody, an opposing client, asking me what my client is doing wrong. So I just wanted to make that as a comment, and I know that the city attorney is aware of that and sensitive to it. He has commented on it, but I just wanted to make it clear that I think that having the public give that list of questions as if this was a trial was extremely inappropriate.
Okay, I'll take one other question, Joe.
Yes, I'm Joe with the Department of Neighborhood Development. I'm here filling in for Melvin. Lois and I were just looking actually at the new policy. And so the requirement to submit to the department the agenda either way. So either whether you're doing continue the 5 postings, or if you're doing the 1 posting in your own website, either way you need to submit it to the department at least 72 hours in advance.
Either way.
Yes.
What about ENS?
That's ENS.
That is the same thing.
So
And
we
when did that
submitted.
go into effect?
January.
That,
May 6th, right?
No, but you remember, ENS is different than done. So it doesn't necessarily mean sending it to done means that ENS will get it out at the time you send it.
Right.
Because there's still a delay between done to ENS. It's a different agency.
But you're not
Directly
responsible
to
for
ENS?
that. You're not responsible for that. So once you send it to ncsupport@lacd.org, at least 72 hours in advance, it's out of your hands. At that point, the department will put it on ENS as soon as we feasibly can. If there are issues, if you send the agenda to us as soon as possible, so even more than 72 hours, if there are things that are glaring, that are like, this is not good, this is not right, then we'll get back to you and say, so we want to be there to support, to make sure that your agenda is as good as possible, staffing limitations as well, be aware. But as far as the ENS requirement, once you send it, it's out of your hands, you don't have to.
That should change this fiscal year, right? Now you got all those things done.
I have a clarifying, I'll come to you next. I have a clarifying question off of what Brandon asked earlier about the recording or the announcing of individual votes. You said, I believe you said announce, and did not use the word record. So I'm asking specifically with respect to committees. The requirement there is to announce so that anybody who may have not been able to see or observe the vote will know who voted. That doesn't, at least at the committee level, doesn't is not a requirement to record that into the minutes. That's correct. Okay. Thank you. Sir.
So, Joe, are you saying that if I find a 3-day weekend, like on Friday at 4:45, because most of the office closes at 4, I can send in a notice of meeting I'm done for Monday, post it around the place, so I can have a stealth meeting very easily on 3-day holidays?
Well, maybe you wouldn't chime in, but.
Well, you're still, that's not the only posting you're doing,
Right.
remember.
One
Right?
more,
I mean,
you do one more.
Well, if
Two
you.
posting, the one on the website plus one other place.
Yeah, well, okay, look.
Is that, is it essentially a stealth posting?
I'll answer your question. If you were in a neighborhood council, everyone could try to be sneaky, all right? Everyone can try to do something like that.
But you don't get a
if you were,
license.
but you're correct. If you did post that meeting on Friday at 5, 5 or whatever, for a regular meeting, but the idea with regular meetings, remember, is that everybody knows when your regular meetings are, okay? So if your regular meetings are that first Monday of every month, right? Presumably they're used to, that's when they attend. Because anything other than your regular meeting is a special meeting. So the only way you can kind of be more sneaky about it is if you do that 24-hour notice with the special meeting. But that has,
But you can change the date to a regular meeting to be like on a Monday where it used to be on a Friday, and then it becomes a regular meeting, and then it wouldn't be a special meeting. So this is an abuse that you guys have to think about.
well, what you can, if it's a regular meeting, you have a calendar a year in advance where everybody should know what the next regular meeting is. So that's what regular meetings mean, the recurring meetings of the board.
And if your venue burns down,
Then you have to cancel your regular meeting.
Okay, thanks. Last question, Aaron.
Okay, I'm chair of the bylaws. We don't have necessarily regular meetings because we don't really need to change our bylaws that often. What happens, so far this year, we're gonna have a number of meetings because Bunk has come out with a number of changes and rule changes, one of which we're talking about now because that previously, we didn't have those options. So that's going to be the source of our next meeting. But we don't have regularly scheduled meetings because if there is no reason to change our bylaws, we don't have a bylaw meeting.
Yeah, I should have clarified one issue. It's your neighborhood council board as a whole that has a regular meeting.
Yeah.
You have a regular meeting as a consistent practice. Under the Brown Act, the standing committees, it's presumed you're having a regular meeting when you send out your 72-hour notice of meeting. You don't have to have the schedule for your committee meetings. They don't make the same requirement of the committees that they do the board.
We as a board have put it consistently on our calendar on the website since I've been on the board. So a lot of these issues that are brought, I still don't see where they come from. Because since I've been here more than 4 years, we consistently put this stuff up there over and over and over and post it and everything else. There's no such thing as perfect, but I'd say as a board, we've been outstanding. So a lot of these things that I just can't get it. I don't understand where it's.
People want to circumvent the process.
I mean, I've been here all this time, I've seen it, so, sorry.
Darren, do you have a response to that, or?
No, I thought it was just a
Okay,
comment.
okay.
No, it's just a comment, Mike, I'm sorry.
I want to give one last chance to anybody who has not asked a question of the city attorney yet. We'll hit David and Mike, and then we're done. Great, David, go ahead.
Darren, thanks. As you probably know, a lot of neighborhood councils believe, because of the Brown Act amendment that took effect last January, that at least the last names of every board member who votes on a motion needs to be recorded in writing. It sounded a few minutes ago as if you said that is not necessary, which is correct.
It's not necessarily necessary. What you're required to do is, during the meeting, it has to be clear that you're publicly announcing what the vote is, okay? So for example, you could either say the person, you know, these five people said yes, so you could do it that way. Or if at the beginning of the meeting you had taken a roll, right, then you'd say, please show that the 5 vote was unanimous, okay? So because you've announced publicly, somebody can figure out what you've done publicly by virtue of the announcement. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to say everybody's name. If you had a situation where you're trying to do a hand count, right, and you see that there's, you know, a whole bunch favor, a whole bunch abstaining.
Darren, I think you're referring to the verbalization in the meeting. I'm referring to the written recording of board members.
That's a done policy. So your done policy is just what with respect to
Goes for funding.
for funding.
For funding, every name needs to be in there and how they vote. That's the funding policy. But for other issues, it's, you know, as Darren explained, does it make sense for the other issues that you don't need that? Meaning you have to, at the beginning, if you did the roll call, and 12 people are there, let's say 12 people are there, and then the next item that you take is unanimous, right? 12-0, then you don't need to repeat again, writing down all 12 names, because people know that you just took roll call, and those 12 people are the 12 that are there. But whenever it becomes 12-11-1, then you need to identify who that one is, and then they can deduce that the other 11 are from that 12, right? Right.
So either way,
I can talk with you more often.
Sure.
Okay, Michael.
I want to thank you for that clarification.
it sounded like they needed money there.
No, and in all fairness, I just want to let everybody know on the board that I'm not here to make waves, but I wrote a half page on that subject earlier today. And I believe in what you're saying as far as we need transparency. We need to let the general public know what it is that we're talking about on the agenda. I had to email Brad because I didn't even know what was on the agenda, because he said on the corner of such and Chatsworth and Zelda. And I said, are you talking about such and such a item? And because a lot of people don't even know what People's Street is. And I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about, because in the rough draft, I don't even think it even said that. We have to, I mean, this is a neighborhood council, and we have to, let's face it, we all know how many people voted in this last election, and we should have this whole place filled. And in order to do that, we have to appeal to our community. And to get our activism going, we have to get the messages out there. We have to get people to sink their teeth in what we're doing. And whether it be on an issue as to like a mini farmer's market, or how they feel about what we're doing in safety and involving the fire department, the police department. They need in basic, simple language, or whether a land use, or what's going on with Sprouts, and the change of the liquor policy. We need to tell them what's going on. We're gonna have a meeting about it, and have them come out here and get involved. So thank you.
Great. I did have one last question from Darren, which I thought was important, since we had the question arise. Are committees required to take minutes?
No, you're not required to take minutes at the committee level. It's a good idea, it's a best practice, but it's up to you.
Okay, we do need to cut this off, Mr. Clausen. I will allow one more question, then we are,
Yeah,
Darren goes.
I'm in a newly designated area for Granada Hills. It goes from the 405 freeway to Balboa, north of Lassen, south of Devonshire. We were unanimously declared Granada Hills by the city council in August of October of 2013. We've waited now, it's June 2014, and the North Hills West Council has yet to change their bylaws to reflect the new Granada Hills area. They gave us full support with their letter of support, letter of support from the Granada Hills Council. Yeah, and so my point is, they have done nothing. And we're waiting for them to change these bylaws, and they've done absolutely nothing. What is the official, procedure to get them to do this.
Well, obviously, like I mentioned before, when you have concerns about whatever agency, the first thing is bring your concerns to the attention of that agency, so that you can see what the issue is or what the response is.
Well, we did.
I don't know I don't know where you haven't given, I don't know anything about the problem you're mentioning.
Well, here's the problem. I'll tell you the problem.
But I'm telling you how you solve it. I'm not gonna be able to answer substantively whatever you say because of that concern I mentioned before. If it involves advice, I'm not gonna be able to tell it to you. But what I can explain is the way you solve your problems is you start going to the agencies that are involved with this. So if it's an issue of that board not doing its bylaws, make your concerns known to that board. If it's that the application is held up someplace, then find out why the application is held up.
I can elaborate a little bit on that. Dunn did not tell us, Becky Melvin didn't tell me that we had to fill out an application because we did all of the things that we thought we had to do when we voted last year, that we were not opposed to that group of stakeholders being with us. We heard the same thing from North Hills West. They said the same thing. It went to the city, councilman, everybody.
Eric,
But Dunn,
Eric, I have to call this one because we don't, this is an item we've had on our agenda before, we do not have it on our agenda tonight.
no, but I'm
We
just
can't-
elaborating on what the situation
can't really
was.
have
Dunn
that
did
discussion.
not let us know that we had to fill out an application. We're just now getting the application.
Okay,
Is there a time limit? Is there a time limit to change?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Darren, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
for
We
your-
really appreciate it. Please get a hold of us if there's anything that you have. Business cards. You guys all have right?
I'll still take your card so I can email you something to ask them later.
Thanks so much, Darren. Okay, I hope everybody's ready for us to start the subsequent part of the meeting. All right, everyone, guys, we need to come back to the agenda. We'll start off with our board issues and updates. Our first item for oath of office, I guess I'll make an announcement here. We had some questions raised about procedures with the election and who had actually been elected to various seats. There was some confusion over a notice that Cindy sent in. So the outcome of this is that Cindy Wu Friedman is taking the member-at-large community interest seat, which left a member-at-large seat open where the next highest vote receiver moves into. That person is Jeffrey Bohr. Jeffrey's unable to be here tonight, but he is an elected member of the board and will be sworn in at the next meeting when he's able to attend. But also, for the record, Cindy Wu Friedman is our member-at-large community interest director. I'm sorry, it's just community interest?
It's just community.
Okay, thank you.
Member at large is like that, it's just community.
Okay, community interest. Also, I would like to announce that we still do have 2 seats open for faith-based and community organizations, and anybody who's interested in